the true teaching of Jesus, the pine cone, and Masonic Secrets of the Silver Bullet. Deep in the brain sits a silver bullet-shaped gland that points upward, and while it receives reality from the light that enters the right eye of Ra, it projects one's desires blended into the reality through the left eye of Horus. This happens naturally in all of us, but in those who activate this gland, the pineal opens up like another set of lashes, revealing a third eye, also shaped like a small cup. The activated gland secretes an oily substance and begins to overflow with this oil, like a cup runneth over, spreading across the brow, making said person anointed, and called the holy anointing oil. Something else also happens, because now the activated pineal gland not only perceives light, but magnifies it, radiating a glow, encompassing said anointed person in a halo of light, and with more light penetrating it and changed from the pre-activated silver bullet to the engorged and open third eye, the physiology of the pineal transforms into a powerful emerald crystal light transmitter, receiver, and manipulator. However, the activation of this pineal gland, silver bullet, is not in the head region or in the 45-degree angle of light's pathway in the human skull, and through the pineal gland to the back of the head to the crown, where the cosmic mind of God connects with us, but rather the activation point of this cerebral gland is in the very tip of the spine, in the coccyx, wherein the first seed of life, or germ, from insemination and prior to mitosis exists. This germ is said to contain the very essence of the life force, the very same meaning of the blood of Christos. This germ becomes the seed of life, which is made of 13 spheres, which is the number of Jesus Christ, and Scorpio, whose signet is this symbol, which turned 90 degrees counterclockwise, is the one and same symbol for the Kundalini, and the serpent Ophiuchi of the Konoibi priesthood of Egypt, who initiated the historical figure known as Jesus Christ. This germ, or the blood of Christos and seed of life, is energized, quote unquote, generally within every 29.5 days. But for some, as in those born when the moon was in Cetus, only 3 days out of the whole year. But not to worry, because the Masonic Texts reveal Cetus is one of the names once given to Jesus, because consider that the letter J did not come into existence until the 16th century, and, prior to, was simply a stylized C or I confused for the other. And said whale constellation is said to be behind other biblical myths and tales like Jonah and the whale, and Jason and the Argonauts, both of whom are seen by many biblical researchers as precursors to Jesus Christ. And just some of the astoundingly many more occult secrets revealed of the true teaching of Jesus, the pine cone, and Masonic secrets of the silver bullet. The Holy Grail. The Holy Grail resides in the coccyx, the bone at the bottommost tip of the spine, and a bone that very much resembles the tip of a scorpion's tail. Scorpio and the Kundalini share the same ancient signet, which is this, and which represents the germ or the seed of life, or Metatron's cube, which has 13 spheres, as there are 13 major joints in the human body, 13 Masonic chakras, and the same number attributed to Jesus Christ, said to be the fluid that results when the blood of Christos from the Holy Grail joins the silver bullet pineal gland in the brain. And this germ, or seed of life, is best harnessed when the moon visits one's natal lunar sign, or the sign in which the moon was stationed on one's birthday. The moon. The moon is 13 embodied, alongside with our 13 joints, the 13 Masonic chakras, and the 13 spheres in the seed of life and Metatron's cube, which itself vibrates to the number 13, which the moon plays a central role in energizing, which is different from activation. The moon energizes one's lunar natal sign around 13 times a year for 1 to 3 days at a time within every 29.5 days, which are the numbers that approximate one Saturn year. And Saturn, too, plays a central role in the matured Kundalini, or tree of life, grown from the seed of life within oneself, which unites the ego and the avatar. The more lunar visitation one gets, as in a Virgo, Leo, or Taurus, the more quote unquote re energizing they need. In other words, young souls. While less moon visitations, like with Cetus and Scorpio, mean old souls. The moon transits 15 signs overall, 13 of which pertain to joints, but Cetus, the neck joint, only gets lunar visitations 3 days out of the year, though that is merely because these lunar natal Cetus human spirits are born emotionally mature and wise beyond their years. Scorpio, as you may recall, is the coccyx, which is not a joint and differs from one, as it is the origin of the seed of life, while the joints are passageways, or branches for the seed of life's growing, branching tree. And the moon visits Scorpio 13 days out of the year. The emerald tablet of thought. The activation of the seed of life is done mentally, per the first principle of mentalism, as stated in the Kybalion. The all is mind, the universe is mental. At the core of this principle of mentalism is mesmerism, which is, simply defined, the focus of one's mind, and, by rule, is only done with eyes closed, because when the eyes close, the pineal gland opens, and, though what at first all you may see is blank darkness, that is just a novice, immature pineal gland's perception, unlike a master's matured pineal gland, whose perception is like a living kaleidoscopic ocean of color and shimmering light. Nevertheless, in novice and master practitioners, the pineal gland opens with eyes closed. Another way to explain the difference is that masters see every sort of changing shape, blob, and lights, which are actually light codes of information from the invisible field of energy all about us, that the pineal gland reads like the laser in any CD player reads a CD. And because of the silvery reflection of the pre-activated pineal gland, it is described as the inner mirror and the penetrable portal where consciousness demolecularizes. You can attest to this same sensation of your consciousness demolecularizing, if you have ever, or ideally every day, entered a deep state of meditation. In meditation, your consciousness demolecularizes from your body, becoming nothing, or better said, no thing, i.e., no walls, no limits, no barriers. When there is nothing between you and everything. Therefore, you are all, and all is you. How to meditate properly. By rule, with eyes closed, focused on the coccyx located near the perineum and right above the anus. To activate the seed of life, it must be trapped, quote unquote, which is done by squeezing, tightening the anus or anal kegel, while simultaneously sustaining a very specific breath. Whether seated on a chair upright or preferably cross-legged on the ground upright to connect deeper with Earth, Mother Gaia, inhale and exhale through the nose if you can, and connect the tongue to the roof of the mouth to mimic the same electrical synapses between the neurons of the brain, which will enact a subtle piezoelectric current to run throughout the body. With the breath, said to be spirit, but blended, is electrified spirit. With your inhale, make your intake so profound your stomach expands. With your exhale, release all the electrified spirit engaging the abdomen, constricting as if you were doing a crunch or sit up, like your aim was to connect the belly button to your spine. Don't forget, sustain the anal kegel and tongue to the roof of the mouth, breathing through the nose. This causes pressure to build up, along with the piezoelectric currents throughout the body, activating the seed of life in the Holy Grail, forcing the very life force, or original blood of Christ of God, to break out of the germ and have nowhere else to go but upwards, toward the silver bullet pineal gland. The essence must journey upwards, called the rising awareness, also symbolized in ancient times by the lobster of the sea and the scorpion of the land, toward the first red root Muladhara chakra. But first, the life force must make its way up the triple spiral channel in the coccyx, thus the Senya for the rising Kundalini and Scorpio, wherein we see this triple spiral with the arrow indicating the upwards ascension. The chakras, a speed round. To activate the first, Muladhara chakra, one must envision the color red, imagine, or intone its tone of Lam. The light of this chakra is sparked only from an activated Kundalini, which is ruled by Mars, the god of war, or his higher purpose, diplomacy. One either lives, triggered by life, in a constant state of war, or focused on their dreams, with supreme indifference and radical acceptance of others, oneself, the world, and life itself. If, in you, good overcomes hate, your dreams overcome your rage, the root chakra is ignited, and the old earthen relics of suffering burn up and purge your soul, like in a fireplace. That also purifies the chestnuts roasting on its open fire, or the testicles in man and ovaries in women. The lesson being that life is not suffering, and one's karma not always gets passed on to the next generation genetically, because When you consciously reconnect to your original life force from God, you realize your divine birthrights, which are bliss, security, abundance, and prosperity, each represented by one of the lotus petals of this chakra. These are your birthrights. Claim them and realize they're universal. Thus, this must instill in you a sense of peace and passive nonviolence. Now forgive others for the past, and preemptively, for ever getting in your way. When you claim your birthright with respect and forgiveness for everyone, the Svadhisthana second chakra lights up. This respect and forgiveness for everyone must include first and foremost your mother, your father, and yourself, manifested in you as the mother left moon side of the Ida, whose energy channel, or nadi, originates from the Muladhara and branches out to the left hip, ruled by Ophiuchus of the ether element. And your father, manifested as the right sun side, Pingala, which also originates from the Muladhara and extends to the right hip, ruled by Aries of the fire element. These two energy pathways, or nadis, represent genetic and spiritual inheritances, or karmas, from your mother and father. But once purified of them and their problems, become the more elemental and purely ethereal forces of the masculine electricity and feminine magnetism. Some spiritual advice: if you feel pain or strain in either of these hip joints, drop it. Drop the memory or memories associated with that pain. These pains all come from the false need for survival. Recall: bliss, abundance, security, and prosperity are your birthrights. You just forgot, and all the melee of life, the first 0 to 29 and a half-ish years. And you are what you think, because what you think you attract. And before, in the melee of early life, it was easy to forget your birthrights and be convinced that you have to fight to survive. But not anymore. So drop it. From the moment the pain was first inflicted, and everything ever since, let it go. Let it vanish. You're holding on to it. It is not holding on to you. So let it go as best you can. Divest your energy of all of it. Stop flexing the muscles in that region and straining as though you have to keep carrying that weight. You don't have to. Take back your energy. Remember, it's all mental, and veer your energy and mind toward your own dream life. And relax. Relax into your dream. So, divest, take back, and reinvest in you. And also forgive yourself, as you are manifested in you as the central and neutral spinal sushumna. So sit up strong and confident. And when all three are united, the masculine father, the feminine mother, and the androgyne neutral child, you can truly begin the ascension to heaven. And heaven means heaved up or pushed up, meaning through the breath, with eyes closed, and with the anus tightened to entrap this energy, to make it so that it has no choice but to go upwards. 2. The second Svadhisthana chakra, whose tone is Bam, is activated by envisioning the color orange, and whose element is water. being in the sacral region filled with water. It is thus called the womb, the virginal womb, and symbolized by the moon and described as watery or Mary, Mary, Mar, E. Mar meaning ocean, which are Earth's wombs of life. And this sacral chakra water is also your own baptismal font, where the true baptism of the growing or ascending consciousness takes place. The lesson being, shower others with your forgiveness, love, and light, because when you do so, a light is born, meaning the third Manipura chakra, which is your own inner sun, made of a fire so pure it is smokeless and does not burn, but simply and purely shines from its own brilliance and incandescence. The color of this chakra is yellow, the tone Ram, and the element, of course, fire. A whirlwind of passion ensues, and, if you are still anally uptight, this whirling passion will have nowhere else to go but up. So, onwards to the fourth Anahata chakra, whose element is, appropriately, air, the tone Yam, and the color green, and whose lesson is, as air and wind are so pervasive that nothing can stop it, wrapping itself equally around skyscrapers as trees and butterflies, to flowing as equally through tunnels, to caves and your nostrils. So too the heart's passions know no walls, because the ignited heart chakra doesn't even have the need for windows or doors, because they only imply more walls. And any would merely dissolve in the heart's flames, thus the very meaning of living with an open heart. From here, the other three are automatically activated, as the second principle of correspondence states, as above, so below, as above. As the heart is between three above and three below, being the in between, what happens below must equally happen above, and is symbolized in the chakra symbol for the heart by two interpenetrating triangles, and the very meaning behind one of the holiest symbols known to man, the electromagnetic light body, or Merkaba. In rapid succession, the fifth Vishuddha throat chakra is activated, with its turquoise color, the tone Ham, and the element ether, all attributing to the creation of the Amrita. Amrita is induced by the Vishuddha throat chakra, which is a honey that descends from the pituitary and drains into the back of the throat and sweetens one's speech, endowing one with the voice and words of God's knowledge. The lesson being, one needn't always speak, if so, make it sweet. And the very meaning behind the saying, if you can't be kind, be quiet. Amrita is the honey or nectar from the gods that endows immortality and is activated simultaneously with the pineal gland, because the blood of Christos from the seed of life and the Holy Grail, which has been heaved up along the 33 vertebra of the spine, up the 33 degrees, where all the smoke of the old energies of the old self getting burned up by each chakra flow up and dissipate into the ninth chakra, represented by these clouds, that, once dissolved from the psyche and consciousness, fill one with such euphoria and bliss, so as to make one feel like they're floating on cloud nine. But before it gets there, the blood of Christ from the seed of life bottlenecks, literally, in the neck, where it concentrates in this region ruled by Cetus, which Masonic texts claim was one name meaning the same as Jesus, as the letter J, again, did not come into existence until the 16th century, and was originally written as a stylized C, which was easily mistaken for the I, which the J sound was meant to replace, as in the Greek word for Jesus, Jesus. Therefore, Cetus is Jesus, and both are resurrection. Cetus and Jesus were also said to be crucified or impaled on or by wood. The neck joint is also said to crucify or fix upon the head upon the body, and where this crystal-spinal fluid concentrates until it shoots up, ascends, or ejaculates into the third eye, Ajna chakra, whose color is blue, its tone, Om, or better yet, Aum, as in Ah for the Alpha and Om for Omega. The chakra is where the energy currents of the Pingala and Ida pierce and penetrate the pineal gland silver bullet, like serpent's fangs or a scorpion's pinch, filling up the pineal gland with this spinal fluid, engorging the pineal like a cup, also like an eye pointed up and opened, which overflows like a cup runneth over, with this spinal oil, blending it with its own cerebral pineal oil in the claustrum, which is where we get the claws in Santa Claus. And physiologically, the pineal gland transforms from a smooth silver bullet to a bumpy acorn-like emerald crystal, set to glisten iridescently like a Christmas tree, the human ego, and the divine avatar, respectively, and the basis for the myths attributed to Christmas and the birth of Jesus Christ. And now, the real magical superpowers of the silver bullet are accessed. Because when reality, from now on, enters the right eye of Ra, which is like the camcorder of the human machinery, like the video option on a mobile phone, the reality is transmitted to an activated and no longer closed third eye. And as our reality is mental and light, the pineal gland can now manipulate and change said reality before it emits it through the left eye of Horus to replace the seen reality with the imagined pineal gland reality. And yet, this can only be successfully done after the light crosses the whole brain to the back of the skull, which, in the human, has evolved so the light bounces in a 45-degree angle up to the crown of the head, to the seventh Sahasrara chakra, whose tone is as in the sound of the breath, and whose color is violet to white. The planetary ruler is Uranus, whose name breaks down into Ur, which descends from the Greek Uraios, meaning cobra, and later the Latin Uraeus, and the one and same name given to the serpent adorning Egyptian pharaoh crowns, and Anus, meaning, well. And the signet for Uranus is this signet, which depicts the seed of life and anus, and the ascending spinal fluid, and the cobra's hood, which extends right and left. These numerous tiebacks to the serpent and its venom, from the name of Uranus, the Uraeus, to the serpentine crawl of the masculine electric Pingala and feminine magnetic Ida as they shift their polarities along the spine, to even the way this pineal gland fluid is said to break things down and dissolve things, like a serpent's venom, are said to be the reasons why Uranus portends major catastrophes, cataclysms, and other major societal breakdowns that lead to major paradigm shifts. For example, astronomically, Uranus can be tied to the many water-based disasters, tsunamis, deep ocean earthquakes, and even nuclear disasters, as in the Fukushima nuclear disaster of March 11, 2011, during his stay in water sign Pisces, followed by a short stint in Cetus in mid and late 2012, during which time one of the deadliest Philippine typhoons, Bofa, and one of the most expensive hurricanes in America, Sandy, took place. And ever since entering fire sign Aries, the world has been consistently on fire, literally. 2020 began with Australia specifically devastated. As Uranus inches closer to Earth sign Taurus, there will be more, you guessed it, earthquakes, fires, droughts. And Uranus clearly being associated with devastating catastrophes that spread like wildfire, can be associated with global viruses and pandemics, disasters that will become increasingly more devastating with worse catastrophes. Yet the most important information about this is, for you, the lesson of the seventh chakra and Uranus, which is pure bliss. Bliss for bliss' sake, with radical acceptance and supreme indifference toward it all. As you breathe for life's sake, so too bliss out for life's sake. Breathe bliss, and life becomes it. The more and more you merge your personal will with the greater divine will, represented by the 45th degree angle bridge that connects the 6th and 7th chakras, the greener and stronger your pineal gland becomes as it receives, transmits, and is encoded with the divine will from the very mind and thought of God, funneled to your emerald crystal antenna, which becomes imprinted with them, like some emerald tablets of thought. All of which are the powers promised by the proverbial silver bullet, your very own pineal gland, just waiting to be activated. But the good news is you already possess it. And if you know the story of Jesus Christ and believe, then this should give you even more reason to believe, because this teaching was the very mission of the true historical figure we know as Jesus Christ, Jehoshua ben Azariah, who not only mastered this knowledge, but used it to resurrect himself, which, when he did, the sound of 7 trumpets from every one of the planets, and the very myth from which the biblical 7 trumpets originate, blared through the cosmic menstrum of the solar system, changing Earth's axis and the constellations of the ecliptic, along with the calendars, resulting from the subsequent conflagrations and catastrophes experienced all over the world. And if you're wondering, well, wouldn't these conflagrations and catastrophes be recorded by cultures all over the world and around the same time? The answer is a resounding yes. Civilizations were struggling to update their calendars and follow the seasons shifted around by Jehoshua's resurrection. But kings and leaders were also dealing with populations that did not want to give up their traditions and old calendars, which is why there were 2 concurrent calendars going on at the same time all over the world, from Babylon to China, recorded by the Jews and the Bible in Peru and by the Mayans. The Mayans themselves realized their Olmec calendar, which we call the Mayan calendar, became obsolete because it was based on the pre-Jesus Christ resurrection, 360-day moon and solar year. In fact, the Mayans and Aztecs did create a new calendar, precisely measured and calculated to the current 365-day year, constellations, and ecliptic, but was infamously all destroyed and burned by the conquistador, who themselves were Freemasons, aware of the true ecliptic. And when they found out the Mayans not only knew of Jehoshua, because he did what the Catholic Church did without doing what the Catholic Church did, which was fulfill his mission to teach knowledge peacefully, because knowledge is power, and the greatest power is knowing and validating God in you and others, which is not the MO of the Catholic Church. I digress. The Mayans recalibrated the calendars to the new celestial 365-day a year ecliptic better than the Gregorian calendar of today. So, they destroyed it and left us as a ruse and dead end, the Mayan calendar, which is why none of the prophecies of that calendar have accurately come to pass. And if a sign age is 2,160 years, and Aquarius does not begin until 2,600, then the difference between those numbers is 440, meaning if Jesus is Pisces, and all of this started happening around the start of the age of Pisces, all of this would have taken place in 440 AD, a far cry from the institutionalized norm being thrown around of 0 to 33 AD, and which coincidentally is the music industry's current standard set at 440. However, if we go back to the astronomical data, we see the true start and length of the sign of Pisces from 654 BC to 2600 CE, an astounding 32 centuries. And when Jehoshua and all of his resurrection really went down, which was actually between the years 743 and 650 pre-JCR, meaning we are separated not by 2,000 years, but by 2,700. Where did those 700 lost years go? And you may be wondering, this must all be written and recorded somewhere. To which the answer is again, a resounding yes. All over the world, every culture, every king and royal astronomer, from every civilization across the world throughout history, records how they had to update their calendars all around the same time, around these dates of 700 to 650 pre-JCR, from 360 days to 365, and with wholly new sun and moon paths. And some kings and royal libraries record how they failed to update their populations, who refused to accept the new calendars or even match their calendars to the heavens. And their solve? Well, this is recorded too. Many just simply scrubbed the slate clean, started at zero, deleting the hundreds of years that would clearly be missing in the annals. Though again, the evidence is still clearly there, but they just simply call these lost epochs of time the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages. And just in 2016, a set of maps have shown us proof that such a worldwide cataclysm event could take place, and indeed it did, because of one geographic land area and civilization called Tartaria. And just like the Arya in Nazaria, the name of the Nazarenes from whom Jehoshua comes means the connection or Naz to the Aryans, who, when facing extreme persecution for their beliefs in the Jesus Christ from the newly formed Constantine Christian religion, and the irony is operative here, the remnants of Jehoshua's school escaped Judea to what later became the Tartarians of Tartaria, changing their name from Nas-Aria to Tartaria, or the Tree of Aria, descending from what is the Proto-Celtic Taras, Proto-Norse tar for tear, the Proto-Indo-European teres for root. These different roots form the tree that was the Tartarian Empire, bespeaking its appeal to people from all nations and walks of life. Yet, it was the revelation of their civilization in 2016 through these maps that proves just recently the human race experienced a worldwide cataclysm. According to Tartarian, Mayan, and other occulted Masonic texts, records show it was a global mudslide Jehoshua's resurrection caused, which soon, within the next 3 years, another archaeological discovery will corroborate. And this mudslide is what covered all of the old stone monuments all over the world, including the statues of the Moai, the pyramids of Northern and Mesoamerica, just to list a couple. This also explains why all ancient stone monuments were seemingly buried, though not in the slow geological progression of time, but instantaneously and devastatingly. The Catholic Church, or what is called the Catholic Church today, was started by priesthoods who kept and collected these records. Finding the world in such disarray and population seemingly dragged back to caveman times, this Catholic priesthood saw a massive opportunity, and thus was so eager to claim not only the true Jesus Christ teaching for itself, but also all of the old Tartarian architecture it claims are its cathedrals. However, these cathedrals were no cathedrals or places of divine worship, but very elaborate and sophisticated power plants that harnessed EM energy from the invisible ether, just like a Tesla tower, an Egyptian pyramid, or obelisk. If you look for the inventory lists, the manpower needed along with the necessary supplies, and the professionals and means to convey the materials, the budgets to pay the carpenters, or even the thousands of masters already mastered enough to teach the even more thousands upon thousands of apprentices to keep the massive power plant buildings going. These do not exist. The Koinobi texts of the Egyptian priesthood who initiated Jehoshua record how Jehoshua, his people, and all cultures all over the world became so well learned and aware of this secret knowledge and symbols, which combine mathematics, physics, and electrical currents, all residing in the human body and out in the invisible energy of the cosmos. They clearly were and lived far more advanced than we could ever imagine. This knowledge was even known and practiced by Native Americans, as exemplified in the totem poles, echoing the spinal column and the many animal myths associated with Jesus Christ. Jehoshua is said to have lived in the last days of the working power plant of the Great Pyramid of Giza, which acted like a Tesla tower, emitting energy to the obelisks that dotted the world then, like today, and harnessed just the same by the Catholic cathedrals, which clearly illustrate through their constructions, whose stones act the same as those in the pyramids in harnessing EM energy, to the beautiful interior-exterior engravings, which show their knowledge of cymatics, the visible phenomenon of sound upon vibration and matter, from the iron-spiked pyramid, cone-peak towers to the arches, and sacred geometry placed inner columns, which are all meant to amplify electromagnetic energy harnessed from the field, and which were all part of the world culture of the pyramids. Yes, according to the Masonic Texts, the supposed Catholic cathedrals all over the world are all remnants of the pyramid and obelisk cultures too, and this is true for all of the countries claimed by the Catholic secret priesthood. There is no pictorial or editorial record of the church being built. They simply put a plaque on it saying, founded in such and such year. Found dead, yes, but not built in such and such year. As if that were not astounding enough, the Masonic texts also make clear that Jehoshua was fighting an enemy that called itself the one and only God. A statement which, for viewers and initiates of this channel, is absurd, as God is all, meaning you and me, and thus there is no one and only one God. God is all is God. And who was this enemy? Recent archaeological discoveries that are themselves pre-recorded in the Masonic texts, but now being corroborated by new finds, are just now being revealed to the rest of humanity, that showcase evidence that Jehoshua was fighting against not one God, but a collective of self-called gods, who were extraterrestrial and not of this planet and wanted to enslave humanity. That we have already been invaded by an alien race and have been fighting them since Jehoshua. Jehoshua discovered the serpent science was the way to free all of us and bringing Earth back to the paradisical domain it is meant to be. Who were these extraterrestrial invaders bringing this Abrahamic Mosaic religion of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth? They are called the Elohim, by the Sumerians the Anunnaki, and this class of extraterrestrial alien gods were different from the people who practiced the serpent science and wisdom, and who are the true native Terrans, called the Hindu Nagas, the Mexican Nagual, the Sumerian Ningishida, the Egyptian Apophis, the Dogon Leber, the Greek Ophis, the Australian Rainbow Serpent Creator, and the Christian Jesus. These native Terrans were the practitioners of the serpent science, and also called magicians, including the very Nagal, or half-human, half-snake beings of magical powers in the book of Adam and Eve, wherein we see Adam and Eve struggling to accept that they must live in the filthy imprisonment the Elohim Anunnaki put them in. You find Adam and Eve in the book of Adam and Eve, for lack of better words, hating their confines, desiring instead to leave their God, Yahweh, for the half-human, half-snake cities and towns. Yahweh is himself described in multiple traditions as a reptilian. And it is extremely important to denote that in both religious and Masonic texts, there is a difference between the native Terran serpents and the extraterrestrial Draco reptilians. In Adam and Eve, their Elohim Yahweh slave handlers are clearly draconian reptilians, while the native Terran Nagal were friendly toward Adam and Eve, welcoming them to freely enjoy their riches, food, security, abundance, prosperity, and bliss, telling them it was their birthrights. Sound familiar? It is written in the skies because of Jupiter, the amplifier of situations, soon conjunct Uranus, the harbinger of paradigm shifts, in Aries, the spearheader of a new norm, that by the end of 2024, there will be an archaeological find that will prove and corroborate this true meaning of Jesus Christ, the holy wisdom of the serpent science, effectively, hopefully, ending the tyranny we have known thus far. Even Adam and Eve desired and expressly pled to go join and live with the native Terran serpents. What is more, the native Terrans take out the serpent is you, is me. Clearly, you and me are the native Terrans, and we were cut off from our true wisdom, symbolized by the serpent. A serpent that unlocks the next step of evolution, from our human egos to our evolved avatars, of the one and same God, which you are and I am, via the sacred serpent, and the halo its venom ignites in our pineal gland, our inner pine cone, and miraculous silver bullet. In the next Occult Secrets Revealed, we will discover exactly how you can unlock your own germ, or seed of life and blood of Christos, or serpent seed, in your holy grail as the moon traverses the constellational backdrop. Depending on your constellational natal lunar sign, not the zodiacal one, but the true astronomical data-based one, you get 1, 2, 3, sometimes 5 days of lunar visitations every 29.5 days, during which time your serpent seed is energized. But first, you must activate it, which is again done mentally, using the specific breath meditation outlined earlier in this series. And upon the dates the moon visits your natal lunar sign, which, for your convenience, are outlined for each sign, including weekdays, for the year of 2023 in the next video. And if you were paying close attention, you may have noticed that the moon will be visiting Auriga, a phenomenon so rare that it only occurs every 18 years. And if you watched our video on the moon called The Moon Code, you know this is to be an auspicious number for the moon. Not only is this celestial event so rare and auspicious, but the individuals amongst us who were born with a lunar natal auriga are connected directly to their light, to their aura. This also means that, whether you are prepared or not, light, pure light, will be permeating our atmosphere and globe. And as light reveals what is hidden in the dark, there are prophecies that tell of major announcements or revelations from governments that will trigger mass anger and spiritual hysteria, starting on October 5th, which, if you are watching this channel, you will be prepared for. So, how does it feel to know the truth? And now that you know, what are you going to do with it for yourself and the world you desire for yourself? Be sure to drop it in the comments and add to the thriving conversation. I read each one and sometimes add my own 2 cents or paragraph to it, because it's your evolution that becomes mine, and I can't do this without you. So be sure to subscribe to join the growing community of learned initiates and truth seekers to, one day, truly make the world a better place. And if you would like to support me in keeping this channel thriving, consider becoming a member, with perks like early access to podcasts of audios that will turn into the video format, and, with your support, a monthly astronomical message on the sun, moon, the planets, and which days for you to focus on for the continued energization of your seed of life, from the Holy Grail to the Silver Bullet. Be sure to also visit our store and pick up a handmade mala, made by yours truly, with butterscotch resin beads from Tibet and high-quality crystal gemstones, meant to help you connect your mind with your breath, with Earth below and the moon above, with a different gemstone for each chakra, and composed of 108 beads, which, if you watch the moon code, is an auspicious sacred geometry and moon-earth number, available while the very limited supply lasts. A deep thank you and special shout out for your super thanks. YouTube doesn't tell me who it is. Any help goes a long way for this one-man production. Until next time, trust and believe that it is okay to be you, the most beautiful you there ever was, there is, and that there ever will be, because you are not a story that can be told twice, and there will never again be a stage for you to perform but this one, right here, right now. So be you, the most beautiful you.